Both the House and Senate gavel back in Monday. The House returns at noon Eastern and begins the week with suspension bills. Votes will be postponed until 6:30 p.m. Eastern.
Senator Joe Manchin, Democrat of West Virginia, and you are a true West Virginia native.
Oh, absolutely. Through and through.
Where were you born?
Farmington. I was born in Fairmont because that's the hospital closest to my little town of Farmington. But Farmington's where I really was raised and grew up and spent all my childhood up until I went to college.
How many brothers, how many sisters?
I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters. There's 5 of us. But in our family, my cousins, there's about 20 of us that kind of was raised really close together. Very short distance. And affectionately, my grandparents was affectionately called Mama Kay and Papa. Papa Joe, Mama Kay. And it was just, it was a Mayberry.
What were your parents like, and did you talk politics growing up?
Oh, politics was a big part of our life, but it was not something I desired to be in. I enjoyed it, being around it. My Uncle A. James was a very flamboyant, colorful politician, if you will. He was the youngest House of Delegate member back in 1948. I'm thinking, yeah, 47 or 48. He was elected. He was elected when he was 20 years old, and he had to be 21 to serve. So he turned 21, so he'd be legal to serve. And he was one of the famous civil rights way back before it was even thought about. And he was defeated on that issue. He didn't think that there should be 2 sets of books, one for black children, one for white children. He thought they ought to have the same. And they defeated him on that back in 1950. He served with Robert Byrd. So family was always very much involved. I'll never forget, I had to be 10 years old working with my grandfather in Papa's grocery store. We all had to start working there. And I heard just the god-awfulest racket and kind of arguing back and forth. And I went back there, and there was Robert Byrd and my grandfather discussing the Bible. Different parts of the Bible and different verses and all this and what they meant, true meanings. And my grandfather, they stopped in the middle of their dialogue and said, I think you might want to meet this person. His name's Robert C. Byrd. He's running for United States Senator. And so that was many, many years ago, as you can imagine. But anyway, the '60 campaign changed our family because of John Kennedy, making West Virginia the battleground. We were Catholic, and knowing that that was going to be a big part of this election is, could he break that religious barrier? I never thought there was a barrier. In my little town, everybody kind of worked in the coal mines, and my father and grandfather had a grocery store and a furniture store, but everyone was on equal. Everyone made about the same amount of money, and I never knew, there was no classes that I knew of or could recall, and I never thought religion was a problem, because my Methodist friends or Baptist friends or whatever, gospel friends, we were all the same. And anyway, that was a big thing. So it got me interested. I'll never forget, one night we were watching news or something, and they were talking about this, if John Kennedy got elected, the Pope would run the country. And I looked at my mom and I said, Mom, I don't think they know the Catholics we know. And so with that being said, that was put to rest. But my uncle became a big part of the John Kennedy entourage, if you will, and he was really big, and him and Teddy were very good friends, and the president always wanted A. James to teach Teddy how to speak as well as he could. So he says, now, Brother Jimmy, you're in charge of little brother Teddy here to make sure he has his oratorical skills. And it's in some of the books, if you read the memoirs of John Kennedy, and every time he'd get down, he wanted Teddy to imitate A. James, make him feel good. But anyway, so that's what really got me interested, and I saw this young, vivacious president, which all I can remember was Eisenhower before that. And he was more of a grandfatherly figure, liked to play golf, and that's all I knew. Now I see this young person who's the leader of our country that plays football and athletic and sails and swims, and it really got me excited about that. But then I went and got a scholarship playing football at WVU. I went up there and I met my wife, and we were married at WVU, but I got hurt playing ball. And then my father's and parents, my grandparents, the whole block burnt down. We lost everything. And the coal mine blew up in 1960. All this happened in 1968 in a very short period of time. We had 58 miners, 78 miners got blown up in that and lost their lives, and more than 50 are still entombed. And my uncle, John, my dear Uncle John, was one of the fatalities there. But you see, I grew up with the coal fields there and understanding the real challenges we have, but also the opportunities it provided. My next door neighbor growing up was Pinchy Dunmire, Harry Dunmire. And I had to be 1954, so I was 7 years old. And Harry used to come and play ball with me every now and then. He was right across the street. And one night Harry didn't come home. And Marcia, his wife, I said, "Hey Marcia, when's Pinchy coming home?" And mine just blew up. And he said, "Pinchy's going to be late tonight, honey." So 2 or 3 days went by. And she's probably trying to figure out how she's going to tell this little 7-year-old boy that Pinchy's not coming home. And I recall that. I really do. And then, fast forward to 1968, my uncle, the same person that lived in the house that Pinchy lived in, was on the cutting machine. He got blown up, Johnny Sopach, my parents' neighbors. So this is all part of who we are. And then you fast forward to when I got involved and how I got involved. It just kind of morphed into that. I was always in business.
I want to come back to a couple of these points, but let's go back to the 1960 campaign. West Virginia was a predominantly Protestant state, so John Kennedy's win in West Virginia was significant. Did you see him campaign? Did you work for him?
No, I was 13 years of age. I'll never forget one day. I'm in the basement of the. We lived in a garage apartment, but I was in the basement on a go-kart. And my mom kept saying, "You ought to come upstairs, I want you to meet some people." And I'm thinking, "Oh, Mom, I'm all dirty and greasy, I've been working." "No, I want you to come up, it might be history, and you need to meet them." And it was the Kennedy brothers. We're sitting there having Bobby and Teddy and all of them were having spaghetti, and Mom was feeding them all, and just getting involved in that excitement, you know, this whole race got our family, but it got our whole state involved. It really did. And it was a turning point, not just for them, but for us. And Uncle Jimmy became the state director of the Farmers Home Administration under the Kennedy administration. But my dad, our car was in the parade, and John Kennedy rode, and we were proud of that. 1958 convertible Chevrolet, white and red interior. I remember it, very big Impala. And John Kennedy rode in that. My dad come home that night and told us all about taking him around. And then Uncle Jimmy would travel with him all the time, with the president, at that time Senator Kennedy and his brothers, and come and share those stories with us. So I was kind of involved, once removed, if you will, but right in the heart of it, because I knew every time they'd say he went here, we were there, what they did, and how the president was just a regular person they really, really liked, coming from a complete different culture, if you will.
This year, of course, the 50th anniversary of his assassination. Do you remember where you were that Friday morning?
It was in the afternoon by the time I heard. I just come off of lunch, and we were going into English class. I was a junior in high school. Just got my driver's license in August. I became 16. So I was just walked into class, and our teacher walked in, Simon Matthews. I'll never forget it. Mr. Matthews was also one of our coaches in the football team. And Simon Paul says, "The president's just been shot." And I'll forget the first reaction. We said, "Oh, come on, Mr. Matthews, quit kidding us." He said, "I'm not kidding, it's serious. The president's just been assassinated, and y'all need to go home." Well, immediately we all beelined home. My whole family, my grandfather, I never seen him leave work for anything. My grandfather was there, my father, Uncle Jimmy, who was working for the Kennedys and the Farmers Home, everybody was there. And just out of the clear, my grandfather says, "We've got to go to Washington." Well, you know me, 16, just had my license. I volunteered to drive. Papa had a big old 58 Cadillac. I'll never forget it. And we all piled in. I had me, my uncle, Jimmy. I had Papa and my cousins. There had to be 7 or 8 of us in this car. And we drove to Washington. And my sister was working in Washington, living in Arlington. So we got here, and my grandfather says, "I've got to go to the casket." So he stands in line all night long to pay homage to the president. And then I can remember little kids, if you ever see pictures on Pennsylvania Avenue, you'll see kids hanging in the trees. That was probably us, because we couldn't see. And I remember when the blackjack, I remember little John